In this whole world, this whole universe, all the universes, every living entity is looking for that one quality. In everything they are doing throughout, and we are doing throughout our lives, is simply that quest, that search for happiness. So this is what we are after. But paradoxically, practically no one finds it. We are living in a country where we have lots of money, we have good facilities, no wars, no natural catastrophes, quite peaceful. But still we see most Danes are very unhappy. We often quote that 600,000 people are eating the so-called happy pills every day. Right? So that is not a symptom of a happy society. Beyond that, beside that, there's so many people drinking huge amount of alcohol, smoking dope, just to escape reality. Because reality hurts. So Prabhupada here gives a beautiful quote, saying we are trying to give people that happiness which will never be exhausted. That is our objective of happiness. So that is what happiness is all about, it's never exhausted. The real happiness is all the time. It's not just once in a while finding a little peace or a little relief from the suffering. Because what most people describe as happiness is actually the absence of suffering or boredom. Most people are so bored. They're always looking, what should I do? Right? The society, what should we do? There's nothing really fun going on. So either we are bored or we are suffering. So a little relief from that suffering is often what we call happiness. In the world of duality, if it's too warm out, we come into a cool room, it's nice. If it's too cold out, we come into a warm room, that's nice. That's happiness, that's this is nice. But how long does it last? It's nice to come in the warm when it's cold out. It's nice to come in the warm room. But how long? Until you find that temperature, maybe then it'll become too warm, you have to open the window. And then your stomach say, hey, give me something to eat. And then your ears say, give me something to listen to. And your mouth will say, or your tongue will say, give me something more to eat. Or let me have something I can vibrate. Who can I talk to? Right? How can I express myself to other persons? Give me something nice to feel. And give me something nice to smell. So the senses are constantly like that, dragging us around. We think we are free, but we are slaves. We are slaves and we are serving a master that will never be satisfied. So the solution is, or there is a solution, but maybe let's wait a little because that comes always at the end. Right? The solution is always at the end. First you have to go through all of this. But there's a way to attain unending happiness, and this is what this lecture is all about. So, true to custom, we will read a sloka, a verse, from this most fantastic book called Bhagavad Gita. So I mentioned before, it means the Song of God. So I chose text 66 of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The Sanskrit first, actually I have it here. No. Okay, let's do this first. So after this lecture, you will know about 3 causes of all distress. Why are we distressed? What is the cause for it? Because if we want to get rid of the distress, we need to know where it comes from. What is the cause? Where does it origin from? How to eradicate all suffering. And how to attain unlimited, unending happiness. So this is the topic of the lecture today.
Ah, nice.
Don't say we are not giving you anything. And it is for free. You get all the solutions to all the problems in the world, unlimited happiness. Who can ask for more? And then on top of that, we feed you. So first I'm going to read the verse, and you have it here if you want to see. That's the Sanskrit and the translation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Asti Buddha Vyukchasya. na cha yuktasya bhavana na cha bhavaita shantir santasya kutha sukham. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the 5th chapter, 529, that when one understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer of all good results of sacrifice and penance, that He is the proprietor of all universal manifestations, and that He is the real friend of all living entities, then only can one attain real peace. Therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind. Disturbance is due to want of ultimate goal. And when one is certain, Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can, with a steady mind, bring about peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and without peace, however much he may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in life. Krishna consciousness is self-manifested peaceful condition, which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. So here's the verse, I'll just repeat it again. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace, and how can there be any happiness without peace? So if you're not peaceful, as I mentioned before, the senses are constantly dragging us around, constantly agitating us. So if you're not peaceful, obviously, we cannot attain happiness. Impossible. If you're constantly disturbed, how will I get this, how will I attain this? Constantly distressed. We live in a very stressed society. So if you're in that situation, happiness is practically impossible. So the whole thing starts by becoming peaceful, but that's not enough. It's not enough to be peaceful, that's not happiness. But that's the foundation of happiness. So we start with the 3 causes of all distress. So this is built on the Vedic literature, which the essence of the Vedic literature is Bhagavad Gita. But the Vedic literature is a vast ocean of literature that describes how to get the best out of life. It's like an instruction manual, how you'll get the best out of life. So Krishna, by His own mercy, God, by His mercy, is giving us a way how we can actually find out how this world is working. Otherwise, how can we find out? How can we find out what is right and wrong? So Krishna is giving the Vedic scriptures. And of all these Vedic scriptures, like that huge literature, the essence of them is describing what all of us are looking for. Anyone have it? What is it? What is we all looking for? You know? Happiness, I just said. Good. I just want to see if you're awake. Happiness, that's what we are for. And we're all looking for happiness. So the essence of all the Vedic literature is about this topic. How can we attain unlimited happiness? Not just temporary satisfaction, but unlimited happiness. This is what we're looking for, the soul. So first we have to get rid of all this distress. So one is, on Sanskrit it's called papa, means sin. And that's obvious. The law of karma is what you give out, come again. What goes around comes around. The Newton's law, which is the 3rd or 2nd, says all action has a reaction, equal reaction. So that's a natural law, that whatever you give out, whatever activities you do will come back to you. So if you do good activities, you'll get good. And if you do bad activity, you get. So that's the law of karma. So naturally, if you perform sinful activities, if you're hurting others, if you're hurting Mother Nature, like that, you'll get bad karma. So that, of course, is a cause of distress or suffering. Then vidya, which means a seed or a material desire. So there we can think, why is that? Why is material desires? Why is that a cause of distress? We like desires, don't we? Anyone will argue we don't like desires? Anyone dares make such a claim? Everyone agrees? 2 hands, 3 hands, all the devotees. Everyone agrees? We all want desires? Let's hear one of the three. Maybe don't agree, I don't know. Let's take, okay, you first. Hare Krishna. You raise your hands and say whatever you have in your mind.
I don't have much to say.
Okay. So maybe you.
Not that desire is wrong, but material desire.
Why? He's saying, if not everyone could hear, he's saying, not that the desires are not wrong, but material desires are wrong. So why is that?
Because whatever you get out of a material desire will eventually disappear. You will lose it.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep it for some time and then you will lose it.
So the result is it's temporary nature. It has a temporary nature. It's flickering. They're very short. So that's part of it. So that's distressful. You're searching. We're constantly searching for happiness. Everything you're doing from you get up in bed in the morning to you go to sleep at night, practically also while you're dreaming, is looking for happiness. Nothing else. Everything you're doing. Just something sometimes we have to go through some trouble or some austerity to attain a longer planned happiness. We go to work. Maybe we don't like to go to work. But we know if I go to work, I'll get some money. If I have some money, I can get an apartment. Then I have shelter. Nice, happiness. I can close my door, I can sit in my couch. And I need food. So everything you're doing constantly is quest for happiness. So it has a temporary nature. The material desires have a temporary nature. And ultimately, what will happen? They will frustrate us. Because they cannot be fulfilled. They cannot be fulfilled. It's impossible. As I mentioned before, we are serving a master that will never be satisfied. It's impossible. There can be some temporary relief, but then just wait a little, and the desires are there again. Constantly desires. We think they're nice, because then we can enjoy. But the enjoyment is very short, very flickering, and then it turns into poison, turns into suffering. Always. No matter what you can mention. At one point, you can do it again and again and again, but after some time it becomes boring. No matter what you mention, it just becomes boring. And ultimately it gives you suffering. That's the nature of this world, because it entangles you. It just winds you up and get you into this circle of samsara, where you constantly create bad karma. So that's the nature of material desires. And then the root cause is avidya, or ignorance. So ignorance, what does it mean? We don't even know who we are. Can anyone say who they are? Really? I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this and this name, I'm working there and there, but that's not our identity. And we can say, I know these two guys just raised their hand and say, I'm a soul! But who is that soul? Who are we really? Who is in here? What is giving life to this body? Who is really seeing through these eyes? Who is feeling through this skin? Who is hearing through these ears? Who is smelling through this nose? Tasting through this tongue? Saying, my hand, my arm, my leg, my stomach, my kidneys, my brain, my mind. Who is the owner? The soul. But who is the soul? Who are we really? So that's ignorance. We don't even know who we are. And we don't know how to attain unlimited happiness. What we are all looking for, 24 hours a day, we don't know how to get. That's ignorance. There's an original ignorance to this, and this is when we left God. We turned our back to God, we turned our back to Krishna, and now we see only shadow. Like when you turn your back to the sun, you see shadow. But when you face the sun, no shadow, only light. So immediately we turn our face to God again, that will disappear. So we need to get rid of these 3 causes of distress. Can you read this? Yeah. Avidya, ignorance. This is where it starts, right? We don't even know who we are, we don't know what is the meaning of life, how to attain it. Ignorance. That's where it starts. Then this ignorance automatically creates a sinful desire. Automatically, because we want happiness. So if you don't get it in the right way, you get it in the wrong way. And the wrong way will bring karma, and that will get suffering. So a sinful desire. Immediately you get a sinful desire, anyone can guess what will be next step. You have a sinful desire, any desire, what will be next?
Material desire.
Huh?
Material desire.
Yeah, this is a material desire. Yeah.
Action.
Action! Right? You'll act. How can I fulfill? What should I do to fulfill this desire I have? My longing, how can I attain it? So an action. Papa, sinful action. From there, something very, very interesting happens. So this is all built on this, coming from these scriptures. Krishna telling us how to get out of this entanglement we are in. This is called aparabdha in Sanskrit, and that means an unmanifest reaction. So here we hear about karma. Right? There's some reaction there, but it's still unmanifest. So next thing what happens is parabdha. It becomes manifest. And from there, suffering. So maybe we should explain that shortly with an example. Ignorance. I don't know how to enjoy. So my way of enjoyment will get more money, for instance. Everyone is looking for money in this world. So if I get a lot of money, then I'll be happy, all my problems will be solved, and my life will be fine. Right? So that will be the thought of one. But if he's not able to get the money in an easy legal way, he will find out how he can get them in an easy illegal. And then he'll go what? Rob a bank, right? Or steal some money from a person, or he'll steal some, God, let's say rob a bank. And he'll get a lot of money, and he'll go and enjoy. But some people will not be so happy about that he took their money, in this case the bank. So they will call the police. And the police are very skilled, that's their job, to find people who rob banks. So the police catch him and put him in jail. That's the suffering. Right? You get an immediate reaction. It can be immediate or it can be after years, even after lifetimes. You can get the reaction. But the reaction will come. Even if the police will not catch you, the law of karma will. You can maybe escape the police, but the law of karma, the higher living entities in this world and ultimately God, He sees everything, He knows everything, He's all powerful. So that law we cannot escape. So suffering will come as a consequence, natural consequence. But that's not really the worst of it. The worst of it is what happens next. Still in this upper octave, in the bottom here with white, unmanifest reaction, two things happen. One is it goes to this parabdha, it becomes manifest, and then suffering. Next thing that will happen is a kutam. Kutam means like an inclination. You get an inclination to do something. It's not really a desire yet, but it's just about to become. So when we perform a sinful activity, this is always there. This kutam, this inclination, it sows a seed in our heart, we can say. At one point, this seed will sprout. And then we have a bija, a sinful desire. And then we go in this circle. Bija, sinful desire, apam, sinful reaction, unmanifest reaction, suffering. And then worse, this kutam, this sinful inclination, the inclination to do it again. And it's just a matter of time, we will have to act upon that inclination. So it's a vicious circle. And there's nothing in existence which can remove this kutam except one thing. Nothing else. It's only one thing that can. Everything else, this papam and bijam and they can be removed. But this kutam, this inclination, cannot be removed by anything except one thing. And we'll come back to it. But the suffering can be removed, or the sinful desires can be removed by doing good activities. If you do a lot of pious activities, that will sort of like counteract the suffering you have coming. So you have a lot of bad karma in front of you, but if you do a lot of good activity, that will be counteracted. But the kutam, the inclination to do it again, will not be counteracted by that. Three kinds of happiness. First, when we get rid of this, there's three kinds of happiness. And this is how we get really rid of all these sinful desires, by experiencing a higher taste. Visayavini vatante niraharashadehinam rashovasya vashovasya parandristva nivatate. Bhagavad Gita says by experiencing a higher taste, by becoming happy for something else, you can easily cease, you can easily give up all these things that brings you suffering again and again and again. Easily, he says. So 3 kinds of happiness. Happiness coming from sense gratification, happiness coming from liberation, and happiness coming from devotional service, serving the Lord with devotion. Many will already think, well, how can we be happy by sense gratification? But according to scriptures, there is some happiness there. It is, as we mentioned before, it has a temporary nature. It's very flickering. Chanchalam. It's very flickering. It's here and then it's gone. And then you run to catch it again. It's very difficult to find and keep it. Constantly, like what's this? All this slipping of your hand, trying to catch it, but constantly slipping from your hand.
Piece of soap.
Piece of salt?
Soap.
Soap! Yeah, good. Wet soap. Let me try to catch it, but it's constantly slipping from me. So this is happiness. This is constantly from sense gratification. Constantly, can't really keep it. And as we heard before, there's a problem with happiness from sense gratification. Anyone can remember what it was? Huh?
Temporary.
Temporary nature and
Unfulfilled?
unfulfilled what?
The desires.
Yeah, the desires are unfulfilled, yeah, and that brings
Frustration.
see it again. Frustration. Good, yeah. That brings frustration, right? Because the soul is constantly looking for happiness because it's the nature of the soul. Sat Chit Ananda. The nature of the soul, we are eternal, the nature, Sat. Chit, we are full of knowledge. And Ananda, most important, we are full of unlimited happiness. This is the nature of the soul. This is why we are constantly looking for it. But if you're trying to find it on the level of the temporary body, the body is temporary, it's going to die. So if you try to find it on the level of the temporary body, you will end up frustrated again and again and again. Because it can't happen, it doesn't work. It's like jumping into the ocean and expecting to get dry. It's contradiction. It can't happen. Some temporary happiness is there, but then it automatically turns into frustration. And just examine your life. It happens again and again and again. And then happiness coming from liberation. There's some philosophies, they're saying, oh, material world gives suffering. They got that far. We give them some points for that. But what is the solution? Cease all material existence. Cease all existence. But that's not possible. The soul is by nature active. So we cannot stop acting even for a moment, Krishna says. Not even for a moment. The soul is by nature active. So when you find out material body, right, all activities bring suffering. Let's stop all activities. But you can't. You can't stop activities because it's such an intrinsic nature of the soul. So try and lie in your bed. How many hours you can lie in your bed? Besides sleeping 8 hours or 7 hours. So you lie in your bed 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Right? How long until it becomes impossible not doing anything? Maybe not even 1 day. Impossible, because we like activities, we like to interact with other living entities, we like to have fun. We're looking ultimately for love. Love. But the only way to find real happiness is in love. So that's what we're looking for, constantly. And we're trying to find it through this material body, with another material body, and end up frustrated. Because it doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. Some temporary relief, some temporary gratification, that's there for sure. But happiness? No. So, I'm sorry about this, I know it's some hot, but I always do it, I can't help myself, so here's some. We burn all this happiness, and then the real happiness is happiness coming from emotional service. That's the real happiness. And that's actually the only way. There's nothing else that can bring us real happiness than devotional service. Why is that? Because it's the intrinsic nature of the soul. The soul, nature, the dharma, Dharma means, it's a word in Sanskrit, that means what makes a thing what it is. The dharma of fire is to be warm and give light. The dharma of sugar is to be sweet. The dharma of chilies is to be hot. The dharma of water is to be wet and liquid. If water is not water, it's not water, right? But if water comes in an unnatural environment, ice, becomes ice. So very cold, the dharma of the water changes into ice. But it's not really a change, it's not a permanent change. Because you bring the water or the ice back in the natural environment again, it will become water again. In the same way, the soul cannot change as such. It can become covered. So we become covered by this body we are in. Whenever we take a material body, ahankara or false identification follows automatically. This is how Krishna created it. Because otherwise it would be too obvious. Then practically like Krishna would take away our free will. So now we chose to use our free will to turn our back to God. So now we see shadow, now we see suffering. But immediately we change that. We get into the right environment. And then gradually, like water, gradually or ice gradually softens and becomes water again. Gradually, gradually, gradually. Same way our heart will melt. Or ice, like heart, will melt and become soft again. And when that happens, you will constantly search for happiness. Constantly search for Krishna. Constantly search for unlimited love. Because that's the nature of the soul. So the happiness coming from devotional service is the only happiness that is real. That's Dharma. 3 levels of happiness in devotional service. Can you still follow? 3 happiness of devotional service. Happiness in devotional service. So in devotional service, Prabhupada used to say it's a scientific process. It is not something hocus pocus. It is not something absurd. It is a scientific process. If religion is not scientific, it's not religion. If it's not scientific, it's not. If it's not, you can do it. You can act out what is written in the scriptures. And if you don't get a result, it doesn't work. So in this sense, you can easily find out. There's so many religions in the world. So you can easily find out what works. Simply study the people who's following that process. Are they becoming more merciful? Are they becoming more happy? Are they becoming more religious? Will they get better habits? So the 3 levels of devotion is a scientific process. So very, very systematically it explained all the different levels one goes through in the process of getting closer to God. And you see all the pitfalls that are there on your quest, on your travel. So that you can avoid them. And so that you can really find out where you have to focus to get to the next level. Very scientific. We will not get into the details here, that's a whole lecture in itself. But it's very scientific, mentioned many different levels. The whole thing starts with just a little faith.